VF and we'll break that freaking window.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now. We're not playing this game. Get out.
Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. What part of violence do you understand? Hey, Drew, I'm getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting arrested. I'm getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting out, bro. God, man.
When we tell you to do something, you do it.
You understand?
I'm getting out.
You understand? Not what you want, but what we tell you. You're a little confused. I'm getting out, bro.
Too late. Too late.
All right, bro. Take me to jail, bro. Do what you gotta do, bro.
We are. We will.
Good, bro.
It is good.
Hey, Drew. Hey.
Don't worry about it. I hung up the phone. You stop crying.
Welcome back, everyone. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the Tyreek Hill traffic stop, and we're going to be giving it to you from 3 different viewpoints, from Tyreek Hill, the law enforcement perspective, and from what the media is saying. And we're here to tell you that what we are going to say is not what everybody else is saying. I'm Mark Rutledge, this is Kyle Schoberg, and this is the Shots Fired podcast.
All right, but before we get started into the video, we want to say we just got back from Washington, D.C. from teaching at the TAC Ops conference. Guys, if you're not getting signed up for these TAC Ops conferences, you are totally missing out. They are Nashville, Washington, D.C., New York, and they just added Florida to the 2025 schedule. So that is going to be a blast. It's in Jacksonville. I would say if you guys are patrol, SWAT, anything in the field as it relates to police work, get signed up for these conferences. You literally will not miss out. And thank you to everybody who came to our class. We had a blast, came up, talked to us, took photos with us. I think it's a cool time and interaction for us to get out, talk to people that listen to the show. It's actually funny because when we go to these, how many people actually watch the show? They get excited, I guess, to see us in person, which is kind of funny. But we love it. And yeah, we love hanging out with you guys, getting a beer, taking pictures, just getting to meet people beyond the camera. So we thoroughly enjoy it. And again, these conferences are just, they're a blast. We love them. So if you're not getting signed up, we seriously encourage you guys to do it. You will not regret it. Go to swatconference.org. The schedules are on there and get registered for 2025.
Okay, let's get into this because this is gone viral and people are just emotionally charged on all aspects from this traffic stop.
Yeah. So here's the thing. A lot of people on social media have their opinions about it. You've got people on major news networks, sports networks, ESPN, SportsCenter. You've got news broadcasters weighing their opinions on it. You've got people from the sports community, players weighing their opinions on it. And then you have the law enforcement whole side of it, right? So if you go on social media and people are posting about this, you've got cops who are either agreeing or disagreeing with what happened in their cops' interaction with Tyreek Hill. I think where we're going to break this down from is like literally this whole show is like a neutral conversation. And I think people are going to be surprised maybe by what we have to say.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how this even unfolded in the first place. Tyreek is driving to the game in everyone's saying it's a $500,000 car. I'm not a super car guy, so whatever. It's an expensive car. He's driving at an excessive speed to get pulled over by one of the traffic officers. That's how this whole thing starts. So let's just talk about that right off the get-go. You have a sports icon who is a huge name in the NFL, driving like that on the way to his own game. I guess where it's a little annoying to me is he's going to his own game and you have thousands of people who are also going to the game that are paying to go watch him play and his team play. So then my question is like, what gives you the right to drive the way that you're driving to even get pulled over in the first place? Like, what example are you showing anybody else? Just because you're a celebrity and you're on the team that gives you permission to speed. So he gets pulled over. The officer goes to contact him at the window, like an ordinary traffic stop. And Tyreek is argumentative right off the bat. I mean, there's just no denying that. It's on the body cam. Doesn't want to roll down the window all the way, or he barely rolls it down. His windows are tinted. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. The officer safety piece of it. But he's being argumentative right from the get-go. And here's my problem with that. I already just said it. You're a sports icon. You're a multi-millionaire. People are paying a lot of money to go watch you play in this game. You're now being pulled over and you're acting like that. In my opinion, if you're a professional athlete, especially at the level that he's at, there are so many people that look up to you. Kids look up to you. that camera footage is obviously going to be put out there. Like, wouldn't you want to show an example of how to behave, even if it's an interaction with the police? Why are you acting like that in the first place? And we'll touch on his statement after the game where he says, you know, whatever his uncle taught him, you know, that's obviously like debunked in the camera, but we talked about why he said that, and we'll share on that later. But that's kind of where I'm coming from as far as like his behavior. I think he's wrong right from the get-go, and it started with his driving behavior.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like that. He is an icon. He is someone that multiple kids look up to, adults look up to him. He should be setting an example. I kind of understand some of it, though. I'm trying to put myself in a perspective of you're leaving your home. You are a high-level athlete. You're going to a game. He's probably sitting in his car. He's probably kind of getting amped up. To be honest, he's probably listening to the Shots Fired podcast in his car driving or some type of music that's pumping him up. He's getting ready. He's pulling in the stadium. He's got his windows tinted. He's in a very expensive car. He probably just wants to get through that to get to the stadium. He doesn't want to get noticed. He doesn't want to get stopped. And he's just driving way too fast. And yes, he should not be. It's rude. There's a form of entitlement. This is my car. This is what I want to do. I kind of understand a little bit of it. I don't think it's acceptable, but I kind of get it. His actions at the window, based on what his uncle has taught him, I disagree with that. You should be professional with law enforcement. The reality, though, is that the citizens, there's many people that do not like law enforcement. Mm-hmm. They are going to be difficult. They're going to make your job difficult. They're going to berate you. Then you're going to get the general public that respects you and does everything exactly that you ask. Law enforcement has to expect that. Citizens are going to act the way they want. Law enforcement needs to respond professionally. I don't like how he acted in this. He did not physically resist. He was slow getting out of the car. I don't agree with it. I think there's a form of entitlement. I don't like how he actually responded.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's an entitlement thing. He's like, this is our home game. This is my stadium. You know, he puts himself probably above everybody else just because I guess he can in his eyes. You know, he's an icon.
In some aspect of that, he's got to be that level and to perform on that. When you step on that field, like, you are the best. You know, people put water in your mouth for you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do that at all. So I could see his this is my stadium aspect. Not appropriate, though.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the interaction between him and the cop. So the first cop that pulls him over, which this isn't to cast shade on Miami PD or whatever, but their motor uniforms have got to get updated, because I was looking at their helmets and I'm like, what the hell is this guy? What are they even wearing?
Maybe it's because it's so hot there.
Looks like straight out of the 70s. I don't know. But anyways, besides the point. So his interaction, I didn't have a problem with. He was just kind of like, dude, give me your ID, whatever. Why he pulled him over. I don't know that the first cop that pulled him over realized who he was at first. You know, there's people out there saying, well, he's driving a $500,000 car. Like, you should know who he is. And no, like, I don't really buy that, because you're in Miami. There's expensive cars everywhere, I'm sure. And, you know, like, people rent super expensive vehicles just to look cool. So I don't know that just because you're outside the football stadium and you pulled somebody over who's got a $500,000 car, I wouldn't expect that to be an athlete, or, you know, who knows? It could have been somebody going to the game.
Yeah.
So anyways, beyond that, the officer that shows up who lost his temper, I mean, look, clearly that dude's been around the block for a while. I think it said he had like 27 years on the job or something. So he's a motor officer, which is no wonder he's angry. But, you know, he shows up and he's not playing around. Like, he doesn't give Tyreek a whole lot of time to, you know, or the other officer to even kind of talk to Tyreek to be like, dude, look, here's the thing. I just want to get your ID, probably issue him a citation, maybe if he even chose to do that, and then be on your way. The officer went from 0 to 100 pretty quick.
Yeah,
I felt. And so let's talk about that part of it, because that's where everybody's obviously attention is going. Look, here was my opinion on this whole thing. If the argument is it's an officer safety thing, which is what everybody's saying, which is like the typical cop lingo to say is, oh, it's an officer safety thing. Okay, well then let's talk about that. You're saying he doesn't want to roll down the window. His windows are tinted and you can't see, which is legal in Florida. And he won't get out of the car. Okay. So in that case, I'm going to treat that like I would anybody else. in that scenario. And I don't care if he's driving a $500,000 car or a piece of shit Honda Civic. If that person is not willing to comply with me and I feel it's that big of an officer safety issue, I'm going to back off that car. Now, I know they're on motorcycles and they don't have a whole lot of cover, but I'm backing off that car and getting behind whatever cover I can. And I'm going to request some patrol units to come over there with some cars. And I'll start trying to call this guy out of the vehicle. And at the end of the day, if he doesn't want to get out of the car, if he's that hard set on not getting out of the car, what do we have?
The barricaded.
You have a vehicle barricade at that point. Okay, fine. If you choose to want to treat it that route, that's fine. I've got all the time in the world and I've got a lot more tools and resources than you do. I'll get you out of that car.
Yeah.
One way or another. I don't have to rip your door open and grab you by the head and pull you out and throw you on the ground. I don't have to do that. Why? And maybe that's not a popular decision by a lot of cops, but here's the thing. How many cops are shot and killed doing stuff like that? I can think right now, without even giving it any thought, one off the top of my head, that was earlier this year, the Nashville officer who was trying to get a DUI. It was a DUI driver out of the car. Couldn't do it. Tried to tase the guy. Didn't work. You had multiple officers there and he shot and killed that cop and took off. So those are just some examples that I'll use all day long about why I would not put myself in a position where if I truly felt like this is an officer safety thing, then I'm going to treat it as such.
Yep. And I think my opinion from the officer or the law enforcement perspective is you have these officers that are assigned to work traffic control at the stadium. They probably work multiple large events like this where you're putting cone patterns out, you're monitoring traffic, lots of people coming and going. From an officer's perspective, those are stressful situations. You get people that stop, they ask questions, it blocks traffic, people try to go through cone patterns, they honk. It does elevate your anxiety level and it does get frustrating, though it's not acceptable to get to that point. It does happen. That's the reality of working traffic control. And in this situation, they see this car driving at what they articulated as 60 miles an hour in a 40 zone, unsafe speed, and they go to make the traffic stop. I don't care what the expensive type of car. I didn't even know what type of car it was until someone said it, and I still don't know what a McLaren F1 is, but I know it was loud based on the body cam. But I don't care what type of car it is or who's in it. If you're driving reckless through that, you have an obligation to make that stop, which they did, and then you pull the person over. And motor officers are generally very professional because they do traffic stops continuously. They know lots of IA or internal affair complaints come from traffic stops. So they are very professional, very scripted of what they do. And in this situation, it was a 27-year veteran that just lost his mind and pulled this Tyreek Hill out for whatever reason. And you're right, he is trying to argue and articulate officer safety. And he did say that he didn't think he had a seatbelt on, but the reality is we talked about it from Tyreek's viewpoint is the citizens don't have to be polite to you. Your responsibility is to be professional to the citizens. And if it gets to the point where it's an officer safety, they don't want to roll the window down, look at the big picture of what's happening here. You have a responsibility of traffic control in a large event, getting people through. The person was driving reckless. Somebody figured out who he was. This officer may not have known that. It's not acceptable to operate and to act at that level and knock on the window and try and pull someone out. That's just not acceptable in my opinion, and not professional.
Yeah, I think so. One of the officers you could hear on the body cam, he does say, he's like, "Hey man, that's Tyreek." Now he kind of says it under his breath. It's on his body cam, so the audio is going to pick it up. Who knows if the other cop, like, quite frankly, it doesn't even matter.
It does not matter who it was.
It doesn't matter who it is. Yeah. Like the dude got pulled over. You said it. They don't have to treat the cops well. He can be as emotionally charged as he wants. I think at the end of the day, he's the one that's going to look dumb because he is the icon and it's going to be all over the news, which it is. And if I was in his shoes, I wouldn't want to be broadcasted behaving like that because it makes you look dumb. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He's allowed to. You said it, the cops, you're not allowed to get emotionally charged like that. You can have the whole officer safety thing. You can have like steps in the back of your mind about how you want to handle this situation as things start to progressively either get worse or whatever starts to happen. But to just, I don't know, to lose your cool, we call it contempt of cop. I think that's what happened here. So I'm going to say, I think the cop's behavior was out of line also.
Yeah.
I think Tyreek's attitude and behavior was out of line. And I also think the cop's attitude and his behavior was out of line. Now, because people are going to roast us and say, oh, you can't let someone just not roll down the window and, let them dictate the actions of what's going on and pull somebody out of the car. They say, well, if someone's going to act like that, then, basically you need to show your authority. Well, here's the deal. I would say maybe that would be acceptable if his door was already open, he's halfway out of the car, and you're trying to get this dude to like come out and he's like kind of playing these games with you, and you have a good advantage point to pull somebody out of the car. Okay, I'm fine with that. This wasn't the scenario though. Like, he had to physically open his car door. All sorts of things could have went wrong there. I mean, luckily it didn't. And Tyreek wasn't there to hurt anybody, but then you start talking about he's ripping him out of the car. They're throwing him on the ground, which just by default is going to look terrible. I mean, that just looks horrible. And you've got Tyreek is basically saying like, hey man, I'll comply. He's saying he's going to do what he's told. Some people might argue, well, it's too late for that point. I don't know. Well, I've been doing this for a long time, and you did this job for a long time too. When you show your level, when you show like your force to people, or you show your hand to somebody when they're being mouthy with you, not physically, but they're being mouthy with you. And then now you start to show a little bit of dominance, right? Because you're dictating what's going on. I mean, a lot of times people will go with the program because they don't want to get hurt.
Well, there are times, and I know you've experienced it, and a lot of you have experienced it. There are those people that you pull over during a traffic stop and they try to intimidate the officer, refuse, make it incredibly difficult.
Totally.
And there are times where officers go, oh man, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't have the capability.
Or they're afraid.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
And then they just let that person go. And I kind of almost think that was this incident where he was trying to dominate and say, dude, this is who I look at my car. Let me out of here. And we've had people reach out to us from other agencies that have had interactions with Tyreek Hill, officers having interactions, and they've all said it's all been negative. He's never been cooperative and respectful with them.
Yeah.
And I think this officer made the decision to say, nope, that's not going to happen. And he snapped and he goes to pull him out. And then that's when Tyreek decides to make the decision of like, oh man, I'm not getting away with this. I've got to go with the program.
Yeah.
And he did. The officers couldn't scale it back.
That's what I feel like I was getting at is like, you got to learn to scale it back. Once you feel like, okay, I've got control over this person. We're not playing his games anymore. You're right. I think Tyreek Hill probably has used that tactic probably one too many times, and maybe it's worked for him in the past. Cause we did have cops reach out to us and say he does act like that. So you got to learn to scale it back though. And if someone's going to go, all right, man, I'll comply with you, then let them comply. Like, let them at least give you the opportunity to show a level of compliance.
And then this is where it kind of took an interesting turn too, is
his teammates showed up.
Yeah, but you have the general public, fans that are driving through that are starting to watch this, that are seeing an interaction, seeing a very expensive car, which there are plenty of people that know that about a car, maybe even know who he is, that are going to start watching. So now a crowd could start drawing. Mm-hmm. Then you have the players, some of his teammates starting to check on him, which we had a pretty good conversation about this.
Yeah. So you see in the video, it looks like, I think it was a Rolls Royce SUV pulls up. A couple of his teammates are, pulled over wondering what was going on. Look, I guess I don't blame him for doing that. Like you said, if I saw my buddy pulled over and being arrested by the cops, you're probably going to pull over too and wonder what's going on. And it, at least from the body cam perspective, it didn't look like they were being rude. It didn't look like they were inserting themselves in the situation. They legitimately were probably like, holy shit, Tyreek's getting arrested. Like, what the hell is going on? And that same officer, he was already at like a 10, and he walks up to those guys and he's just like immediately, telling them he's got to show them their ID. The guys are kind of like, look, dude, we just want to know what's going on. We'll get out of here if you want us to. But the officer wasn't having it. He's like, threatening to arrest him basically if they didn't show him his ID. So that started to rapidly escalate. And I want to say the one guy ended up getting detained by the officer. But I mean,
well, it's interesting on that because there are many times when crowds start to draw when you're detaining people or making an arrest. And especially in a situation like this at a stadium, you're going to draw a crowd if you want it or not.
Well, the crowd's already there.
I mean, that is very true. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why we were saying, it was like, dude, if his teammates pulled up, the Tyreek thing is kind of already escalating. Maybe it's coming down a little bit. I feel like it was. But when the teammates showed up, if I'm the cop in that position, I would probably wouldn't want to walk up to him and be like, hey, look, guys, here's what happened. We're trying to calm this whole thing down. Maybe those guys could help calm Tyreek down just to get him to a point of like, dude, you're going to get a citation, sign the fucking ticket, and you're going to get out of here. Like, why would you not use his teammates to your advantage to try to calm the whole thing down instead of approaching the teammates already super, super amped up? And then like, now you're yelling at them. Now they're going to start bantering back and forth. Now this whole thing is about to spiral out of control.
You're right.
To me, it didn't have to happen. Like, dude, use that to your advantage. I would just talk to those guys like just normal dudes and be like, dude, can you guys please help us out? Like, this is what happened.
Yeah.
We don't want to make this something it doesn't need to be.
We talk about this in our patrol survival tactics class all the time, and we focus a lot on critical thinking. And I think this is an example of when that could be used. As soon as that player starts coming up and he's saying, hey, that's my buddy, grab him. I would go up to him and I'd be like, hey, thank you for stopping. I need your help in this. Can you help facilitate this? Thanks for stopping. You're changing the whole perspective of what's happening. Now that person that's checking on their buddy is like, oh man, maybe I can help. Now they're on your side, and you'd be like, hey, this is what happened. Like you said, pulled him over. He wasn't cooperating. He's out of the car. He's being detained. Can you help us kind of talk to him so we can get him out of here?
Yeah.
Bam. Now all of a sudden, everything is cool. Everything's mellow. And you like diffuse the whole situation.
Yeah. And as cops, like you don't, at the end of the day, like you don't come out of these videos looking like the jerk, right? Like,
Right.
Okay, things escalated with Tyreek. Now you're dealing with some of his teammates. That would be a good opportunity to show like you're not trying to be assholes, but you're also dealing with something. So the whole dynamic of it is weird. So people are like, well, what's your perspective of this whole totality of everything? Like, you can share yours, but mine is Tyreek is for sure in the wrong. The cop was for sure in the wrong. I don't see any winners in this whole thing. Like, I think they were both in the wrong. That's my standpoint on it. Like I said, Tyreek has an obligation. He's a professional athlete, and he should not be acting like that. And from the law enforcement point of view is you can't let your emotions dictate your tactics and how you handle business. Like, we say that all the time.
Yep.
And that is why.
My perspective is the same. Tyreek definitely could have done better. You're a sports icon, a sports figure. People look up to you. You should be professional. You should be recognizing that. Law enforcement perspective, law enforcement officers are supposed to be and need to be professional. Their job is to enforce the law and to uphold the Constitution. They need to do better on this one. I think for sure both are in the wrong in this, and nothing good is coming from this.
No, and as far as his statement that he gave after the game, people were talking a lot about it, and he's like, hey, look, I wasn't being argumentative. My uncle told me, put my hands on the steering wheel if I get pulled over by the police, do what they say, be respectful, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know if he wasn't taking into account that cops have body cams, but obviously since he made that statement, body cams have come out, which is disputing everything he's saying. That's just inaccurate. But also from his point of view, like if I'm his attorney, I'd be like, dude, don't say anything because you've been criminally charged with a crime. Like, you need to let the judicial process play out. It sucks, but people are going to talk about it, but I would be in a position where I just wouldn't say anything at all.
No, I wouldn't say anything either. And you're right. What he is saying is disputed by the body camera.
Yeah.
But if his attorney talked to him, you're right. If he's up there publicly saying, I was in the wrong, I was speeding, I resisted, he is just now admitting guilt to these crimes. They're going to pull these body cameras and the news media clips and use that against him in court. It's almost like he has no choice but to deny that. So when it gets to court, but the better example is not to have said anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you don't want, it'll make him look, dumb, or people are going to be like, well, now I don't believe him.
Yeah.
Cause that's clearly not what happened. So I don't know. I guess we could sit here and chat all day about it. We wanted to give our perspective on the whole thing. And it's funny because a lot of you were messaging us on Instagram asking for this video, and we were going to get to it, but I think we're in a better position to wait for facts a lot of the time, and instead of just giving our own opinion. Cause then if our opinions are different than what the facts show, then I guess it doesn't really matter either way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our standpoint on the whole thing. And look, again, we try to seriously come at things from a neutral, unbiased standpoint. So yeah, it's unfortunate, I guess, but hopefully there is a lot to learn from it. Cops who watch that video should learn from it. And then hopefully people in the sporting community who are either athletes or somehow involved in that community see also that video. And, I would hope too that they would want to make change, have those conversations as a team, right? Like that's a good locker room conversation. Like, hey guys, you're not privy to any special privileges because you're a professional athlete. Like, here's a clear example of that. And have the conversation about like, how are you going to act if you are contacted by the police, right? Because as an organization of a team, if I'm an owner of a team, I don't want to I don't want to deal with that.
No.
That's a direct representation of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
So there is a ripple effect of the whole thing. But athletes need to recognize that too, just like we do when we put on a uniform. How we conduct ourselves is a direct reflection of not only the agency and city that you work for, but the profession as a whole. And athletes are in no different circumstance.
Yeah. Well, a lot of interesting points on this. Thanks for supporting our channel. Stay safe, be smart. We'll catch you on the next one.